The Master System was more than a console. It was the safe harbor of an entire generation that grew up banging their heads against difficult games, dreaming of secret stages and being enchanted with graphics that, at the time, seemed like something from another world. It was the place of magic, challenge, and of course, that nostalgia that can't be explained. Today, we're going back in time together and remembering the 10 classic Master System games that, just by hearing the soundtrack, make your eyes shine and your heart tighten. Prepare the tissues because this list will mess with your memories, and maybe even make the toughest guy cry with nostalgia. Anyone who grew up in the 80s and 90s will never forget the magical sensation of turning on the Master System and seeing Alex Kidd in Miracle World running automatically, without needing a cartridge. It was as if the console already came with its own soul, and that soul was the pointy-eared boy with giant fists who became our first video game hero. The game starts simple. Alex lives alone on Mount Eternal, training the shell core martial art that allows him to break rocks with his fists, until he discovers that the city of Redaxian has been dominated by the tyrant Janken the Great. From there, the adventure becomes an epic journey of self-discovery, where Alex discovers he's the lost prince of the kingdom and needs to save his older brother. For a platform game of the era, the amount of dialogue and narrative was surprising. Alex Kidd's gameplay is raw but absolutely addictive. You feel the weight of each jump, the strength of each punch, and especially the frustration of each death that forces you to restart the entire stage. The money collection system was revolutionary for the time. Unlike Mario, who collected coins just for extra points, Alex could actually spend his cash in shops scattered throughout the world. Buying vehicles like the motorcycle, boat, or pedal helicopter wasn't just cosmetic. Each vehicle opened different gameplay possibilities, and when you lost them by hitting obstacles, you simply fell into a more difficult section of the same stage. It was genius in its simplicity. Visually, the game demonstrated the Master System's technical superiority over the NES of the time. The colors were vibrant, the sprites were large and well-defined, and each scenario had its own personality, from the aquatic stages to the dark caves. The soundtrack, despite being repetitive, stuck in your head and created a unique atmosphere of childish adventure mixed with real challenge. Black Belt is one of those games that perfectly defines the spirit of the 80s. No nonsense, no complex explanation, just pure and direct action. You are Riki, a karate master in a white kimono, and your mission is to cross 6 consecutive stages, eliminating infinite hordes of colorful ninjas who explode into little pieces when they receive your punches and kicks. The game is a westernized version of Hokuto no Ken, but this license change ended up benefiting the experience. Without the pressure to follow a specific anime, Black Belt became pure arcade fun. It was the type of game you'd put on when you wanted to discharge the day's anger, punching enemies until they turned into pixelated confetti. The combat mechanic is simple but extremely satisfying. Riki has a basic repertoire of punches, kicks, and high jumps, crouching before jumping, but each blow has weight and visual impact. Seeing enemies break apart into 4 perfect quadrants after a well-delivered kick never got old. It was almost therapeutic. The mini-boss system scattered throughout the stages added variety to what could be a repetitive experience. Each had their specific attack and defense pattern, requiring different strategies. Some could only be hit by counterattacks, others needed specific sequences of blows. This variety kept the player always alert, even in the longest stages. Black Belt's graphics were impressive for 1986. The sprites were large, well-animated, and full of personality. Ricky had an imposing presence on screen, and watching his victory animations, where he literally beat the defeated boss's body until it exploded or passed out, was a spectacle of cartoonish violence that seemed straight out of the best B-action movies of the era. The soundtrack, while not memorable, had a cheerful tone that hilariously contrasted with the wild beating happening on screen, as if you were taking a Sunday stroll while breaking jaws. Wonder Boy 3. The Dragon's Trap is, without exaggeration, one of the most important precursors of what we now know as Metroidvania. The game literally starts where Wonder Boy in Monsterland ends. You defeat the Mecha Dragon, but the damn thing curses you by transforming you into Lizard Man. From that moment, your journey becomes an epic quest for the Salamander Cross, the only object capable of breaking the curse. But here's the genius trick. As you defeat other dragons throughout the world, you gain their forms. Mouseman to pass through tight spaces, Aquaman to swim, Birdman to fly, Lionman to climb walls. Each transformation opened new areas of the map, creating that addictive sensation of, now I can go to that place that was blocked. The exploration freedom in Wonder Boy 3 was revolutionary for 1989. You had a central city as a hub, but could choose which direction to take, which dragon to face first, where to spend your collected gold. The equipment system was deep. Swords, shields, armor that you bought in shops or found in secret chests, each one genuinely affecting your strength and defense. There was even a charm system that allowed you to buy special items marked with question marks. The game respected the player's intelligence. There were no arrows indicating where to go, no extensive tutorial. You learned by exploring, making mistakes, discovering. It was pure gaming. Wonder Boy 3 aged like fine wine. While many games from that era seem dated, The Dragon's Trap is still perfectly playable and engaging today. The 2017 remake proved this by maintaining exactly the same gameplay and only modernizing the graphics. But there's something in the original version that the remake can't capture. That raw feeling of discovery, of exploring a digital world when this was still a novelty. Castle of Illusion starring Mickey Mouse proved that the Master System was capable of creating magical experiences that rivaled anything Nintendo offered. The story is classic Disney. The witch Miserabelle kidnaps Minnie and Mickey needs to cross 7 fantasy worlds to rescue her. But what seemed to be just another licensed platform game revealed itself as a masterpiece of design, art, and gameplay. Each stage was a completely different world. The enchanted forest, the magic library, the giant clock, and all had a unique visual and mechanical identity that made you feel like you were literally inside a Disney cartoon. Castle of Illusion's gameplay was refined beyond its time. Mickey didn't just walk and jump. He slid down stairs as if they were slides, swung on ropes, threw magic projectiles, and even made facial expressions reactive to the environment. The control was precise and responsive, essential for a game that mixed traditional platforming with action and exploration elements. The life system was forgiving without being condescending. You could take several hits before dying, but still needed skill to navigate the more complex obstacles. The power-ups scattered throughout the stages weren't just functional, but had visual charm that reinforced the magical atmosphere. The visual aspect of Castle of Illusion was simply stunning for the Master System. The colors were rich and vibrant. The backgrounds had multiple layers of parallax, and attention to detail was obsessive. Small animations in the scenery, light and shadow effects, secondary characters with their own personality. Mickey's animation was fluid and expressive, perfectly capturing the classic Disney character's personality. Each world had its own color palette and artistic style, from the lush green of the forest to the mystical tones of the library, creating a visual journey that never became monotonous. Seeing Sonic on the Master System was, for many of us, a somewhat confusing but fascinating experience. We were used to seeing the blue Hedgehog as the symbol of the Mega Drive's power, with his mind-blowing speed. The 8-bit version, however, was a completely different game. It didn't try to be an inferior copy of the 16-bit version. It was its own adventure, with distinct stages, music, and design philosophy. It was an important lesson. The same concept can generate two completely different masterpieces on different hardware. The biggest difference in gameplay was the pace. Speed was still present, but in a much more controlled way. The Master System's stage design was more focused on precise platforming and exploration. Instead of loops and tunnels that propelled you forward, here you needed to calculate your jumps carefully and look for hidden routes. The Chaos Emeralds, for example, weren't in special stages, but hidden in the actual stages themselves, encouraging thorough exploration of every corner. This gave the game a more methodical cadence, almost like a platform puzzle. The stage design was unique and memorable. Bridge Zone, with its crumbling bridges and auto-scrolling screen, created a sense of urgency and danger. Jungle Zone had vines to climb and dangerous waters. Labyrinth Zone, a terror for many in the 16-bit version, here was challenging but in a different way, with less focus on imminent drowning and more on careful navigation. Each world presented a new idea, keeping the experience fresh and engaging from start to finish. Sonic on the Master System didn't live in the shadow of its more famous brother. It proudly carved its own path. It's a game that deserves to be celebrated on its own merits. A brilliant platform game with perfect controls, intelligent stage design, and one of the best soundtracks in the console's history. Golden Axe Warrior is one of the most ambitious and unique experiences on the Master System, essentially Zelda with axes. Sega took the Legend of Zelda formula and coded it with Golden Axe's barbarian mythology, creating an action RPG that managed to be familiar and innovative at the same time. You embody a bearded warrior in search of the legendary Golden Axe, crossing an open world full of dungeons, NPCs, puzzles, and secrets. The game managed to capture Zelda's adventurous essence while maintaining Golden Axe franchise's own personality, an impressive achievement for any developer. The progression system was addictive and rewarding. You started weak with basic sword and shield, but gradually collected gold to buy better equipment, found special items in hidden chests, and gained new spells that opened strategic possibilities. Each dungeon had its own theme and unique challenges. Some were complex labyrinths, others were more focused on combat. Some mixed platforming with puzzles. The world map was extensive and interconnected with secrets that could only be accessed after acquiring certain abilities or items, creating that classic feeling of, now I can go back to that place and see what was there. Golden Axe Warrior managed to create a unique atmosphere. The artistic style blended Zelda's medieval fantasy with Golden Axe's barbarian brutalism, resulting in a world that seemed simultaneously magical and savage. The sprites were detailed and expressive, especially the dungeon bosses who were genuinely intimidating. The soundtrack was epic and adventurous, with themes that evoked heroic journeys and legendary battles. Each area of the map had its own musical identity, helping with navigation and creating memorable atmospheres. Outrun is pure 80s spirit distilled in video game form. It's not just a racing game, it's a fantasy of total freedom, where you drive a Ferrari Testarossa convertible through sunny roads with a girl by your side and an unforgettable soundtrack playing on the radio. The concept was revolutionary. There were no rivals to defeat, no weapons to use, no complex story, just you, the car, the open road, and time pressure. It was gaming reduced to its purest essence. The quest for the sensation of speed and the illusion of escaping to a world where every day is Sunday and every horizon is a promise. The Master System adaptation was miraculous, considering the hardware limitations. The developers managed to capture the visual essence of the arcade using clever programming tricks, the famous scaling effect that created the illusion of depth while you raced down the roads. The different routes offered genuine visual variety: beaches, forests, mountains, each with its own personality and specific challenges. The branching system at the end of each checkpoint allowed you to choose your own path, making each race a potentially different experience. What made Outrun special was its anti-competitive philosophy. At a time when most games were about defeating enemies or overcoming obstacles, Outrun was about pure aesthetic experience. You didn't win, you simply existed in that world for a few precious minutes. Time pressure created enough urgency to maintain adrenaline, but the real pleasure was in the sensation of speed, the music, the illusion of driving through the world's most beautiful roads. It was meditation disguised as arcade. Outrun on the Master System represents a unique moment in video game history. It was a time when developers still experimented with pure concepts before the industry standardized on tested formulas. Psycho Fox is one of the most underrated gems on the Master System, a game that managed to innovate within the platform genre in ways that few titles of the era dared to try. The central concept is genius in its simplicity. You control Psycho Fox, but can instantly transform into 3 other animals: Hippo Man, Tiger Joe, and Birdfly, each with completely different abilities. Hippo Man breaks blocks and is immune to certain attacks. Tiger Joe has superior speed and agility. Birdfly can fly short distances. This transformation mechanic wasn't just cosmetic, it was fundamental to solving puzzles and overcoming specific obstacles. Psycho Fox's gameplay was surprisingly deep for an apparently simple game. Each stage could be completed in multiple ways, depending on which transformations you chose to use and when. Finding the most efficient route became a puzzle in itself. Sometimes the obvious path with Fox was harder than an alternative route using Tiger Joe, or maybe there was a secret shortcut that only Birdfly could reach. The game rewarded experimentation and creative thinking, something rare in platforms of the era that usually had only one correct path for each situation. Psycho Fox's life and continue system was interesting because it included a strategy element. You had Psycho Sticks that could be used to eliminate all enemies on screen, but they were limited and precious. Deciding when to use this special ability added an extra layer of tactical planning. Additionally, there were power-ups scattered throughout the stages that temporarily modified your abilities, creating moments of empowerment that balanced the generally challenging difficulty. Land of Illusion starring Mickey Mouse arrived on the Master System as a kind of Castle of Illusion 2, but with its own personality and even greater ambitions. The premise is irresistible. Mickey is reading a fairy tale book when he's magically sucked into the pages, where he needs to help the story characters and find a way to get back home. Each chapter of the book represents a different world. Alice in Wonderland, Aladdin, Jack, and the Beanstalk, and Mickey literally jumps between classic narratives, each with its own visual aesthetic and unique gameplay mechanics. The gameplay evolved significantly from Castle of Illusion. Mickey kept his characteristic movements, sliding, jumping, throwing magic projectiles, but gained new contextual abilities in each world. In Alice's stage, he could shrink and grow to access different areas. In Aladdin's world, he temporarily gained the ability to fly on magic carpets. In Jack's story, he climbed the famous beanstalk in vertical gameplay sections. This variety kept the experience always fresh and unpredictable, something rare in sequels that usually just refine the original formula. Land of Illusion was stunning even by the final Master System standards. Each world had a distinct artistic identity that really captured the spirit of classic tales. Wonderland was colorful and surreal. Aladdin's palace had golden and mysterious tones. The beanstalk stretched vertiginously across the screen. Attention to detail was obsessive. Small animations in backgrounds, sophisticated parallax effects, smooth transitions between different sections of each stage. Mickey himself was even more expressive, with animations that really conveyed the classic Disney character's personality. Land of Illusion represented the pinnacle of Disney games on the Master System, arriving in 1992 when the platform was already technically mature and developers had completely mastered its possibilities. R-Type on the Master System is pure toughness distilled into 8 bits. A definitive test of patience, reflexes, and determination that separated casual players from true video game warriors. The adaptation of the classic arcade maintained all the brutality and surgical precision of the original, requiring you to memorize not just enemy patterns, but every pixel of every stage. You piloted the R9A ship against the horrible Bido alien forces, armed only with your determination and a power-up system that could be lost with a single enemy touch. It was the type of game that repeatedly humiliated you before allowing you to experience the sweet taste of victory, conquered with sweat and tears. R-Type's combat system was unique and strategic in a way that few shoot-'em-ups could replicate. The Force Pod, that orange sphere that sticks to your ship, wasn't just a power-up, it was almost a character of its own. You could attach it to the front of the ship to absorb shots and cause contact damage, behind for rear protection, or release it to float independently while you maneuvered. Mastering the tactical use of the Force Pod was essential for survival. Knowing when to attach, when to release, how to position it for maximum effectiveness. It was strategic depth disguised as apparent simplicity. R-Type created an atmosphere of cosmic horror that was genuinely disturbing. The Bido enemy designs were biomechanical nightmares, creatures that seemed like perverse hybrids of machines and living organisms. The stages were claustrophobic and oppressive, full of tight passages, deadly traps, and alien geometries that defied comprehension. The Master System managed to preserve the arcade's sinister aesthetic, creating a world that felt genuinely hostile and alien. Each boss was a Lovecraftian abomination that seemed to have been designed specifically to break your mental sanity.